Welcome, everybody. I am Teresa Miller with the M&M Team Realty, and welcome to our 2021 Homebuyer Seminar. Sit back, relax, no pressure. We're just going to have some conversations. We're going to talk about some stuff, and then we're going to really get to the meat. The meat is, where do I get some money from, and how can I buy a home? And we have our very special, honored, esteemed lender, Mr. Joe Soto. He's going to answer all those questions. So just kick back and enjoy yourself. I have been selling residential real estate for the past 21 years. I am the owner and the broker of the M&M Team Realty. I have the most amazing team in the universe, and you're going to get to hear from the majority of all of them. One is missing. He's babysitting. That's the other M of the M&M Team Realty. So we'll give him some props. Hey, Mr. Miller, we know you out there somewhere. I know the most burning question is buying a home during COVID. What's going on? How is it working? Last year, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it was challenging. At the beginning of COVID, literally the day before, maybe 3 days before the shutdown, I fell in my driveway and I broke my ankle. I'd like to say somebody pushed me or it was like something major, but no. I was walking to the car to put some grocery bags in the trunk of the car when I shouldn't have been, because my husband told me, don't be trying to clean up. But of course, I didn't listen. I went anyway, turned around to come back into the house, and down I went. My foot went to the left and my body went to the right. Wasn't a good situation. So I'm yelling and screaming. They came out. My neighbor came out. My husband came out. Connor came out. Everybody came out. Got me up, scooped me up, took me off to the hospital. Doctor says, oh, well, we're going to have to take you to surgery. Surgery? Can't you just straighten it up? Oh, yeah, we're going to straighten it up, but now you need some pins. So got the pins, got all that, came home. And this was Thursday night. Friday, Sunday, they did the shut-in. I'm like, oh, good. If I can't sell real estate, nobody else can either. Cool. For the next 6 weeks, we're going to be at home. Little did I know my ankle would be healed many times over before we were let out, for lack of a better term. So it was really challenging. We had to learn a new way of selling real estate. So we did. We learned how to use social media. We learned how to use Zoom. We learned how to use Facebook. We learned how to have buyer's consultations online so that you can be in the comfort of your home and be safe. And we can still have that intricate conversation with you, but still do it socially distanced. We learned how, if you couldn't go and you had your kids and couldn't go out to look at homes, we go out and we preview for us. Glennis is the queen of making videos. She will video and post it on her story. I'm just kind of learning about the stories. Taylor and Glennis been trying to teach me the story thing. I'm a Facebook girl. I'm ride or die Facebook, but I'm getting into the stories, and it's been fun. And it's actually been really exciting. You're making your videos, you're doing what you need to do. I actually sold a house. I had a client that lived in San Francisco. So I followed the girl's advice and I went out and I made videos, sent them to him. He says, okay, well, I don't like this one. I like this one. Can we make an offer on that? Really? Okay. Made the offer, went through that a couple of rounds, and we won the bid. He didn't actually come down to see the house until we were in escrow at the buyer's home, at the buyer's home inspection. Now, of course, I'm thinking, oh dear God, please let him still like the house. Let it be okay. Let him like it, because he hadn't seen it. He came down, he loved the house. We closed escrow, and that was my first virtual sale. So it can be done. We still have the option, if you want to go and see, like kick the tires, you can do that too. We have many things that we offer for your convenience. We have the hand sanitizer. We have the gloves. We have the booties. We have the face mask. I feel like I'm back at work. The only thing I'm missing is putting on the gown. I have a little bag with all these things. I give them to you and you can be safe. We can go kick the tires and it's all good. One of the things that I do recommend is that if you have elderly parents or someone that you're special that you want to take, or you have young children, I recommend, if at all possible, let them be at home and we can send them the virtual tours. And then the team, myself, we can go look at the homes. That's just my recommendation. One of the things that we also do is we have to do this form. It's called the PEAD, and that stands for Property Entry and Declaration. And what this form does, it says that you do not have the COVID-19, you do not have a temperature, you haven't been around anyone that has the COVID virus or anything like that, and that we're going to use our utmost careful ability to be safe while we're looking at the house. You know, try your best not to touch stuff and all of that. So that's kind of how we've been buying and selling during COVID. And the next burning question I get is, how is the market? What's going on with the market? Last year was one of our busiest times. And Teresa's aversion, in my opinion, is that we were all sitting in our houses and we're looking around like, maybe I could paint, or maybe I could do this, or maybe I could do that, or maybe I should just buy a new house. That seemed like what happened because we've been so busy. But I have an expert that's not Teresa's opinion, who's going to really tell you about the market and what's going on. I want to introduce you to our the director for the California Association of Realtors. And this was on the news just a few days ago. So let's see if I can bring this video up and we're going to watch it. Can you guys see my screen, or do you see the PowerPoint? Unmute yourself.
See the PowerPoint.
Okay, so let me stop that share and let me share the screen. All right, so now, can you hear it and see it? Cool.
Deposit, plan, and pay with easy.
They have commercials.
Simplicity feels good. Chase, make more of what's yours.
And COVID has crushed dozens of injuries or dozens of industries, but when it comes to real estate, Southern California houses are moving like never before. CBS 2's Suzanne Marquez has more on the boom and what sellers and buyers need to know before making a move.
Strained, stalled, shuttered. Over the past year, COVID has been crippling for much of the economy. While many businesses are doing whatever they can to survive, a few others are absolutely thriving.
We had one of the busiest years in real estate on record.
Stan Smith is the director of the California Association of Realtors. He says, although the year started slow, there were more home sales in California than ever before.
I believe that this situation has put a magnifying glass on everyone's living situation, and your mind didn't think that much about where you were living because you were at work. But now that most people are working from home, that's all you think about.
But getting into that new, bigger house isn't that easy.
The problem in California is that we have much more demand than we have available housing. It is estimated that we need 180,000 new units of housing every year just to meet demand. And at best, we're getting maybe 90,000. We're only adding half of what we need every year. So the deficit continues to grow, and that puts pressure on the existing housing stock and causes prices to go up.
And up they go. In December, the statewide median home price was more than $717,000, up nearly 17% from December of 2019. But the high sale prices aren't driving buyers away.
In a typical market, you may have a hot property that generates 3 or 4 or 5 offers, but we've been seeing offers on properties that were 27, 28, 29 offers. We had one a couple weeks ago that had 50 offers on a property.
And Stan says, while all areas are booming, for many people, proximity is key.
One of the things that this new reality has done has caused a lot of areas to be rediscovered, such as Boyle Heights, Gosell Park, Leimert Park. Those areas have moved from being sleepy and undiscovered to being very discovered and very in demand because they're centrally located.
Stan's advice for sellers and buyers.
For a seller, I would say, don't be unrealistic. Don't think that just because your neighbor got X, you're going to get Y. And for buyers, I would say get all of your ducks in a row. Make sure that you have not only been pre-approved, but all the underwriting has been done. If you can show the seller that you have gone through that process, your chances of getting that deal are much, much greater.
And buyers, you better have all of your financials in line because with competing offers comes a price war. And right now, 1/3 of all listings are selling for more than the original asking price.
All right, let me stop that share. Interesting, right? There you go. Okay, don't be shy. Y'all can talk. Joe, they too quiet.
No, it's very true. I've noticed in me particularly, I noticed that a lot of people out of the valley are coming into town, more into LA versus I remember way back that at that time it was good to buy out in the valley, but now everybody's moving back into, I guess, Southern California. And so that's why these properties are cheap out in the valley, but higher back in LA.
Mm-hmm. Very good, very good, very good. So you have to be ready. And guess what? You guys are doing exactly what you need to do to be ready. So I am so excited to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Mary. Mary is the newest member to the team. So I'm going to let Mary introduce herself, and then Mary will introduce the next speaker, who is Claudia, and then we will go just round robin that way. And everybody gets to share about their self, because if I start talking about them, I'll just talk about them. All right, so Mary, you are up. Are you on mute?
Hi, yes, I had to unmute myself.
There you go.
So good morning, everyone, and thank you, Teresa, and to the team. I'm so happy to be a part of the M&M Team Realty. And this morning, I just want to tell you a little bit about the 7 reasons to own a home. Now, I'm not going to go through all 7, but I can just tell you as a homeowner myself, I am happily surprised by the tax benefits because you can deduct the interest that you pay on your mortgage, on your taxes. And so being a single person now and sort of like an empty nester, this is a great benefit for me. And it has helped me tremendously where my tax returns are concerned. Another reason is that, number one, you're buying something for yourself. You're not buying somebody else's property, because when you're renting, that's exactly what you're doing. You're paying somebody else's mortgage. So if you can pay that $1,800 or $2,200 or even $2,500 a month for renting, you can pay that to buy your own home, and that'll be your mortgage payment. Over time, your house, you keep it up, it appreciates in value. So that just means whatever you paid for it, at the time that you purchase it, it's going to increase in value. And I found that to be true even in my own home. The equity, the next benefit, and that's equity and savings. That's just, money in the bank for you, because as your house appreciates in value, and whatever monies, let's say you put down and the increase, that just lets you have this money already in the bank. And when there is an emergency, or if you have to do maybe some major remodeling or repairs, you have some leverage there. You can go to the bank, you can borrow the money and be able to make those repairs. So home ownership does have quite a few benefits. And so I'm so grateful to learn those things as I went through my own home buying experience. Next slide. Another thing I want to talk to you about is basically why you need to work with a realtor. Number one, the realtor knows the business. They basically personally have gone through buying a home themselves and having to have worked with a realtor, but they also have learned, they're attending different seminars and conferences, and they hit the books. They learn all about what the real estate business is all about, and then they're able to answer your questions, they're able to guide you, they're able to just give you the information that you need in order to keep you on track. Um, the knowledge that they have as far as the market is concerned, they'll be able to negotiate on your behalf. Um, One of the things I think that was mentioned in the video is about the prices of homes today. We say it is a seller's market, and that just means that there's not a lot of homes out there for sale, and so the prices just keeps escalating, and you say, wow. And I'm finding that just different areas that I go into. What, this house sells for this much in this area? And it's a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. Bad thing meaning there's not a lot that you as a buyer can choose from. And so and right now, it is still a good time to get into a home, but you just need to make sure you work with a realtor that can really school you or educate you in what you need to do as far as getting yourself in the home. And basically, they're just up to date. 2021, there were some new taxes, every January, new laws goes out. So that's another thing. They keep abreast of what the state laws are and maybe even the federal regulations in regards to home sales. And we're just here for you. There's no dumb question. You probably heard that in all walks of life. Just ask the question. And when we don't know the answer, we know how to find it. Thank you. And now I'm going to introduce you to Claudia, and she's going to tell you a little bit more. Unmute yourself.
Right away. Thank you so much, Mary. I appreciate that. That was great. My name is Claudia Harrison, and I've been a real estate agent now for about 3 years. Prior to that, I worked in corporate America for about 41 years. So I am retired now, and rather than just sitting down and doing nothing, I decided to get into real estate, and I'm glad I did. I've been able to meet a lot of nice people, clients, as well as my wonderful teammates that are on the screen right now. So with that being said, I'm going to go across, I'm going to review questions to ask when choosing a realtor. And you see them listed right here. It's good that you feel, it's important that you feel comfortable with a realtor. And you are entitled to ask any questions that you like. How long have you been in residential real estate? Do you have any designations or certifications? It's important to know that your real estate agent is qualified, knows what they're talking about, has engaged in supplementary classes and what have you to make sure that they are on top of what's happening in the real estate market. So it is important that kind of get a little background with your real estate agent. And if they're leery as far as the information that they give, that might be a red flag to you. And then that would all definitely be a reason that you should come to the M&M Team Realty. So how will you communicate with me about the progress of my transaction? Communication is important in any relationship, marriage, friends, mother, daughter, parents, children, but it's highly important with regards to real estate agent and client. So definitely establish the lines of communication. Your agent should be willing to listen to you, to receive your calls and emails and texts and return them in a timely manner with the information that you need. And as Mary said, if we don't have the information that you need, we do know how to get it for you. We want your mind to be at ease when we're working with you in the real estate market. We want you to be comfortable. This is a daunting process. This is probably the largest transaction you'll make, a financial transaction you'll make in your life. So it's important that you are able to have open lines of communication with your agent. And it is helpful to speak to past clients. If your agent has done other transactions, it's good to look at their referrals. And we encourage clients to write referrals so that word of mouth is the best form of advertisement. So it's important to have references. A couple of I'll tell you, real estate, when I got into real estate, I realized that it was almost learning a whole new language. There are so many new terms and forms of speaking regarding real estate that the layperson is not necessarily privy to. So the basics that the buyer would need to know is that there are different types of real estate agents. All of us can do either transaction. We can either represent a buyer, we can represent a seller, or on sometimes one agent in a brokerage can have dual agency. That doesn't happen too terribly often. Most of the time when you're working with an agent, if you're buying a property, obviously the agent is the buyer's agent. If you're selling the agent, if you're selling, I beg your pardon, if you're selling your home, you would be the seller's agent. Occasionally, as I said, there's dual agency, and that's usually when a person is selling their home on their own, like a for sale by owner, or but when that comes up, you are absolutely notified that one brokerage may be representing both the buyer and the seller. We also ask that buyers sign a buyer-broker agreement. And what that is a piece of paper saying that you are going to exclusively work with the real estate agent that you are communicating with. It would be really disheartening for an agent to go out and look for properties and do a lot of work on the buyer's behalf. And then at the last minute, the buyer say, you know what, I've decided that I'm not going to work with you. I'm going to work with someone else. So just as a precautionary measure, we ask that the buyer sign an agreement. It's for a specified period of time. It's not for life, but it is for a specified period of time, just saying that you do commit that you would like this person to represent you in the transaction. Next slide, please. How to prepare for house hunting. A lot of times people say, well, I'm going to wait a little while for this. I'm going to wait a little while for that. I guarantee you that waiting a little while will never come. Right now is the time to buy or sell. As the video said, and as you have seen yourself, prices in homes are going up, up, up. The house that you want today selling for $500,000 in a month or so may be selling for $525,000, $550,000. Property is moving. It's constantly moving, and when it's time for you to jump in, jump in. And don't ask for too many opinions. A lot of times when you ask other people what they think, you'll get confused. Your mind will get cluttered and everything. Focus on your gut instinct. Trust yourself, trust your own instincts. Realize that no house is ever perfect, particularly for first-time home buyers. 9 times out of 10, your first purchase is going to be a house that may need a little work. It may be a little smaller that you want, but you have to find the house that's going to fit your price range, your budget. You certainly don't want to be house poor. And once you've been in that house for so long, as Mary was saying, houses appreciate in value. You can take the equity that you've accumulated in that house and go on to purchase a larger house, or perhaps your forever home. So don't sell yourself short by saying, oh, this isn't the house that I dreamed of. It probably won't be, but it will be your springboard to get to the house that you've dreamed of. And don't be a killer negotiator. Again, we've already discussed this. These houses, people are asking for X amount of dollars. And the man said in the video, 50 offers came in, and I guarantee you that house sold for more than what they were asking for. Don't come in offering below. If at all possible, don't offer below what they're asking. 9 times out of 10, you're going to be outbid. And plan ahead. I can't stress this enough. Get pre-approved first. Speak to a lender. Find out how much you can afford to pay. It's very frustrating to go out and look at a home and you find out after you've been pre-approved, oh my God, I can't even afford that. Or you can find out, oh my gosh, I've been looking at houses in this range. I can afford more than that. So please, get pre-approved. Even if you think you need to pay something off first, get pre-approved just to find out where you are in the housing market. Work with your lender, be ready to move, and select where you want to live. These are primary questions that the agent will need to know in order to look in the right areas and look at specific homes that will meet your needs. Use the worksheet to track your budget. Don't make any large purchases in the home searching transaction. You want to make sure that your finances are stable. That will definitely help the lender in establishing where your price range is. And the lender will also help you with credit scores. He'll go over what you need to know about credit scores. Pay off whatever you can as quickly as you can, because that'll only work to your benefit, and it will increase the value that you'll be able to pay for a home. I believe that these are the only things that I have. The next slide is going to be with my friend Glennis. So Glennis, please take it away.
Thank you, Claudia. Hey guys, so my name is Glennis and I am my broker's daughter. I've been in real estate now for officially 3 years, but I've had my license for a while now, since about 2011, 2012. Back then I was pretty much, I guess you can say, my mom's assistant, because you do need your real estate license to do a lot of things. And then about 3 years ago, when I actually went into the home buying process, I decided to, maybe I should probably look into this. And that was when my mom retired and went full time into the business and kind of just said, you're joining me. So I've been here learning and growing. And in 2018, I actually bought my first home, and the awesome Joe Soto, who you will hear from in a minute, did my home loan. And it was a process that I didn't know about on the other side. Being the realtor, I see one side, but being on the other side is very stressful. I definitely understand how my buyers feel right now. It could be overwhelming. It could be discouraging sometimes because you're putting in so many offers. So stick with it. Like everyone said earlier, it is a seller's market, but it's the law of averages. The more you get out there and put your offers in, something is going to stick, and then you will have your home. So I am going to be talking about the property. There's so many different types of properties that most home buyers fall into. A lot of them fall into a condo or a townhouse, and then you have those that are looking for a single family residence, which is, you know, something a little bit bigger that stands alone on their own. I went the condo route because for me, it was less maintenance for me to start off in a condo, and I just wanted to get my foot in the door of home ownership and start building equity, and then use that money to purchase something in the future. So you want to define your dream home. What does your dream home look like? What do you want? You want to make a list of the things that you want and the things that you need. You got to be clear on what you want and what you need. You may want a pool in the backyard, but do you need a pool in the backyard? You may want, you know, high ceilings, but do you need high ceilings? So there's things that are on your must have, and then there's things that is a perfect storm that you would like. So make that list so that you can be clear once you start going out looking for a home of the things that you want to check off on that list. You want to ask questions about the neighborhood. I know I have one client, she asks me about the neighborhood all the time. She keeps me on my P's and Q's because I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know that neighborhood. Let me ask around, because I'm from Long Beach, but some areas in Long Beach I know is good. Some areas in Long Beach is bad. But when we start to reach into Gardena and Hawthorne, as a realtor, we're learning the areas, especially as a new realtor, we're learning those areas. And so you want to ask about the safety of that area. How does it look at nighttime? Are there schools around? Are there grocery stores around? Do you like it? Right now with COVID, there's not a lot of traffic around schools. I know things are going to start slowly opening back up, but if your home is by a school, you want to drive by around that day. Or if you're going to be at home now, a lot of people are working from home during those school hours. How does this sound? What is it going to look like? Those are questions that you want to ask about the neighborhood. You want to ask about for condos and HOAs. When you're going out to look for a condo and a condo, you want to know, is there some condos and townhomes have garages? Some condos and townhouses only have parking spaces. And then on those parking spaces, is there storage? Where is the storage? Sometimes the storage could be on your balcony, sometimes on your patio, sometimes the storage can be overhead. My storage is in my covered parking. So it's an outdoor space. As far as when the HOA comes, your HOA is pretty much what you pay an additional cost for your HOA to run the community, as far as maintenance, keeping the grounds clean, any type of damages that may happen to the outside of the building, keeping the pools clean, the laundry room, if there's a laundry room, that is what usually the HOA pays for. So you want to find out, what are those amenities? My HOA is horrible. Let me tell you guys, I say this every time, but mine is horrible. I pay $320 a month, and all I'm paying for is a pool and about 2 washer and dryers because the other ones are broke all the time. So these are things that you want to look into before purchasing a home. Had I known that, hindsight, I probably would have asked. I was just so in love with the community and I love my condo that I didn't even ask, is the board president crazy? Because she is. How much is the association fee? Those are things that you would want to know so that it fits your budget. When you're getting approved, usually the lender can let you know, okay, you're approved for this amount of money, and that could include amount of HOA fee. To tell you that includes a $320 HOA fee, or that includes, you can go up to $450 in HOAs fees. HOAs are pricey. And in some areas, they aren't as expensive. And in those areas, that the neighborhood isn't that great. So sometimes you have to make a sacrifice. Do you want to have the higher HOA in a nicer area? Or do you want to just have that low HOA? The home may be nice on the inside, but the outside, it may be a little suspect. Next slide. I don't control the slides. You want to ask questions about the condo board. I know before I take a lot of my clients out, I am asking, is the property FHA approved? Most first-time home buyers do go the FHA route. And Joe will explain that that is the least amount of down payment that is available for you to put down, usually around 3.5%. So you want to make sure, is the condominium or townhome FHA approved if that is the route that you're going? Is it VA approved if you're doing a VA loan? Just because if they don't meet those requirements, then your loan may not go through. How many owner occupied units are in that complex? Usually when the occupied when the homeowners are more than the renters, they care about the property a little bit more. So where I'm at, it's about 50% are homeowners and then the rest are renters. And you can kind of tell a difference. Most time the homeowners have plants on their balcony, their patio is all decorated, and then the renters, sometimes they just have a whole bunch of stuff just chilling. It's not as kept up, it's not as tidy because they don't have the same type of ownership and pride in that. And so that is something that I like to ask, how many owner occupied units are in this condo or townhome? Ask about any bylaws, any restriction, any covenants that may be on the property. Do they have a reserve fund, and how is the money used? I did have a client one time where the reserves were short and we were pretty much days from closing and we didn't even know about the reserves being short. And the board was like, well, we just run off of a short reserves fund, and we had to ended up bringing an additional 5% to cover that as far as the down payment for this home, this particular condo, because my client really loved it and wanted to be there. But you want to ask about the reserves. How is that money being used? Usually it's used for emergency things. Where I'm at, they use it to do the asphalt. And I'm like, can y'all give me a new washer and dryer machine? Washer and dryer, like our laundry room is horrible right now. But that is what you want to find out about that. Are there any pending litigations against the property? Are there any special assessments? Meaning, is the special assessment is an additional cost towards the home buyers that they're paying as well as the HOA fee. So I think a couple of years before I moved into this unit, they redid all of the patios and the balconies. And in order to redo those, all of the homeowners paid an additional, I want to say $70, $75 a month on top of their $320. I don't know what it was at that time, but on top of their HOA fees, so that they could have that extra money pay for whatever it is that they needed to be done to the balconies and the patios. And it lasted for about maybe a month. It could last for anywhere. It could be 1 month. It could be 6 months. It could be a year, however long it takes them to raise that money to be able to fix whatever it is that they're fixing. And then last, how are board members selected and how long is their term? The board members are usually selected by the homeowners in that property. And every year, everyone votes for a particular board member. And then that president and vice president and so forth are the ones that run the community. They usually live on the premises. So my board president, it's about time for her to go, but she don't want to go. And she's been here for 15, 20 years, and you can kind of tell she just, if it doesn't really affect her in her particular unit, she stays in the front. She really don't care about anything else. And so, me being me, gathered up my people here at the property, and we're going around like, listen, when the ballots come out, y'all need to vote because this lady got to go. She is crazy. She's mean. She's rude. She's racist. It's like everything. She just got to go. She can't walk. She don't take around the property. She has to go. So
you're getting a recall petition? Is that what you're doing?
Man, we're like,
yeah, I like it.
Ballots are coming. We have to vote next month, and so we got the ballots, and we're just going around like, hey, make sure you vote, because if half of the units, if half they need is 88 units here, so you need 44 to pass to get a new board member, and most people don't really care about those things because honestly, if it doesn't affect you personally, then they really just let it go and let it just be like, okay, it's whatever. But it does affect them. They just don't want to be the ones that's like being out there fighting against it. But I will fight against it because this is horrible. We need better. If I'm paying $320, I want to wake up to roses. Okay. When it comes to buying a property, you get to choose a home inspector. And at the MM Realty, we actually have a list of contractors that we reach out to that we can provide that home inspector for you. We work with an amazing company, and they come out, they're always ready, and they give us the best home inspection report. And we go over that home inspection report. This is one thing that the buyer pays out of pocket when going through the process. Usually you pay for an appraisal and you pay for your home inspection. Those are the two things that you will pay, as well as your initial down payment, your initial deposit when you make the offer. And that could, when the home inspector comes out, they come in, they review everything, and then you and the realtor will go over what exactly it is that we want them to fix and what the seller will fix and what they will not fix. We want to find out, will the home be sold as is, or will the seller pay for repairs? Honestly, 2 years ago, it was, let me ask for closing costs or let me ask for this to be fixed. Right now, because the market is so competitive, a lot of homes are being sold as is. And a lot of offers are saying, we'll waive a home inspection, we'll waive this, we'll waive that, because they want to make their offer stand out from the other offer. I recently just got an email from an agent, and they had 39 offers on this particular property. So that's what we're going up against. It's a doggy dog world out here. And then property taxes. You may have a supplemental property tax. Usually the property tax when you buy your home they redo the property tax for that year, and then it will come in either less or more, or sometimes there's an additional tax that you will have to pay that, wasn't included in your property taxes when you did your loan. I think that's my last slide. Yes, it is. So short and sweet and to the point. I am going to pass it over to my girl, Taylor. We kind of started around the same time. I was so happy when she came because her and Claudia were two people that my mom could bug now instead of just bugging me and calling me. Every time she calls me, I'm like, hey, I'm your daughter, not just your realtor, okay? So I was so excited when they came to the board because now she could direct those questions to them and ask them to do more things. And I get to sometimes be a daughter. So Taylor is amazing. She won, we kind of friendly competition against each other. It helps us stay on our P's and Q's to be top producer here. She won in 2019, and then I won in 2020. And so now we're back to square one, and we both are in this team right now, fighting to see who's gonna be top this year. But she's gonna go over the transaction. So now that we went over, you found your property, she's gonna go over the transaction, what to expect now that you've written your offer. Go ahead, Taylor.
Yes, thank you so much. That was such a great intro. I feel like I don't even have to say much, but I am Taylor. I joined the team a little over 2 years ago. I used to work in corporate America prior to, and I couldn't stand it. I need to get out, meet people, talk to people, see the sun, because the building that I had did not have any windows. So I was over it. And then I met Teresa at the gym. Stars just kind of aligned. She, was like really motivating, and she mentored me through that process, told me, okay, you're taking your test. I took my test, passed it, and we hit the ground running. So it's been great. So I'm going to walk you through the transaction process. So at this point, you found some homes that you love. Hopefully, I said some because like Glenna said, it's a competitive market. We need options, and your first offer might not get accepted. So it's okay to have some backup homes that you really like. So some of the things that we include in the purchase agreement are the home warranty, which is something that is super, super important. This covers your major appliances and like your home systems like HVAC and then like your stove. I kid you not. I had a client last year, the day he took possession of the house, the water heater broke. And the seller was like, your water heater broke. And I'm like, what? He's looking at me like, you sold me a bad house. I swear. But it's cool because we have the home warranty. So, we got it covered. A couple months later, another client, I think their stoves, an eye or something like that on their stove. So they're calling me like, how does this work? So I'm like, okay, let me walk you through this. It's going to be okay. But this helps alleviate some of the financial burden that comes with just some things that happen. I mean, we're not always in control of that. So it is what it is, but we do typically ask for this on the offer. It's not a super big expense, so it's usually sellers don't have a problem paying for it, but regardless, you want to make sure that you have it. Then we have termite. Termite is another optional thing that you can ask the sellers for, unless you're using a VA loan. Of course, it is required, but you can take care of that yourself once you receive possession of the home. Nobody really wants to move in a house with termites, so you definitely want to get that taken care of too, because that's just annoying, really. Then you have your earnest money deposit. So this is typically about $5,000 right now. If you can, put 10 if you can, because this isn't an additional expense to what you're already going to pay at closing. So it's not in addition to your down payment, it goes toward that. So if you can put 10,000, it looks extremely attractive to the seller. It's kind of just one of those things that says, hey, I want this house so bad that I'm willing to let you hold $10,000 of my money throughout this process. So definitely you want to put your best foot forward on that. During this time, or when you send your money, you're going to wire it to the account, the escrow account. You want to make sure that you have the proper account number. So usually wire instructions will come over and it may not have the account number on there because the escrow company wants to make sure that nobody's sneaking in your emails, sending you scams and trying to have you wire your funds to them, because you'll totally lose out on that money after I think like 24 hours, it's gone. So you want to make sure when you get to the bank, you call the escrow company, read off the number that they provided to you prior to that and make sure that it's correct. And then we used to be able to send over a buyer's offer letter and a photo. I think as of last year in May, we're not allowed to do that anymore due to the Fair Housing Act because, sellers might pick you or someone else based off of race or sex or anything like that. So you just got to keep it, unbiased. We always kind of write a little nice something in the letter that we send over with our offers just to kind of make it a little bit sweeter, but that's something that we're no longer able to do. But it's all good because everything else in your offer is going to be A1, so we'll get it accepted regardless. Okay, so then we have our service provider contacts. So the escrow company I spoke about just before, they're kind of the liaison, the unbiased party in the transaction. This is where you'll wire all your funds. They'll send you the documents that you need to sign over. And we work with a really great escrow company as well. If you're on the buyer side, a lot of times we do allow the sellers to choose their escrow companies, but there's some negotiation room in that if you're uncomfortable with it. And then your general contractors, Glennis kind of spoke about before. We do have people that we have a relationship with. So if you want your floors repaired or some painters to paint, once you take possession of the home, we can get you in contact with those people. But it's good to have those contacts on hand in case you need quotes or something like that prior to. And then there's the title company. This is where you'll get your title insurance, or you get your title insurance from the lender. It's required from the lender. And this kind of covers the title basically and protects you from any financial burdens that may come about if there was an error prior to you taking possession of the home. So from 15 years ago, somebody's cousin can't say, hey, I own the home because my name was signed. No, it's already covered. You don't have to worry about that. But that's super important as well. Thank you. And then homeowners insurance. So this covers the dwelling itself. So heaven forbid there's a fire or a flood and your home is just completely ruined. This protects you and the lender as well. It's another requirement. I drove down the street. It was super windy. I feel like a couple months ago I did a video on it and there was a tree that fell over in my neighbor's yard. It didn't hit the home, but I was just thinking like, imagine it was a huge tree and this house isn't that big either. So, if somebody's in the house and something happens to them because of natural disasters and things like that. All of those things are covered. And this is something you can bundle with your auto insurance. Sometimes they give you a little deal. You've heard like the Progressive commercials, and they have the bundle deals. So it makes it a little bit more affordable. But you definitely want to have it to protect and also protect your personal property as well. So then once we get through all that, we're going to start signing loan docs. These are what you will get from Joe, of course, and he'll go through all of that. Once you sign the loan docs and you wire your funds, again, making sure that you're wiring it to the proper account, funding will occur the next day and then, or after signing. Then we do the final walkthrough, and this is when we're going to check for repairs. If you ask for anything once you, during your contingency period, once you did your home buyer's inspection, if there was some repairs or anything that you wanted to take place, this is where you'll make sure that it actually did get taken care of, because after that, it is what it is. Once we get confirmation of recording, the deed is recorded in your name, we can finally hand over the keys. So we always do a video, take a photo. Glennis has a super cute sign. I got to make me one actually, but she has a really cute pink sign, and you can, do a little, TikTok or a boomerang or something like that. It's really, really fun. And then at that point, you get to move in, and Linda will walk you through that process. Hey, Linda girl, you there?
Hey. Oh, hello. My name is Linda, and I've been with the team for a few years. I've known Teresa for most of my life, since the second grade, and she keeps me involved in the real estate in spite of what's going on in my life, and I appreciate her for that. She's going to make me go farther and beyond whatever I thought I could or wished I could. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the move. So when you get ready to move from your home into your new home, you need to make sure you prepare yourself by updating your mailing address, and make sure you contact all the utility companies. And then you make sure you have a master list so that you can make sure you cover everything. So a lot of times people have to decide how they want to move. Some people, they want to use a moving company, and some people like to do it themselves, where they can just get their own personal things and pack it up and move it on their own. And then at that time, that's the time that they should be throwing away anything that they don't need, or put things that's not necessary to take over to their new home. And then they need to update their pets' tags and make sure all the addresses are changed. And then they get ready to move into their home. They can go ahead and receive their key, their garage openers, and make sure they change all the locks. And then if you move in out of state, sometimes people, they like to use that company that takes the time and get the insurance to make sure that stuff is covered while they're moving. So that's just basically the end of not the end of the process, but the majority of the process is already done, because you're now moving into your new home. So next we're going to have the money man, Joe Soto.
Myself. Did I unmute myself?
Yes.
All right. So let's see if I can share my screen. Teresa, if I share, I'm going to stop your sharing. Is that okay? I'm going to say yes. I can't see you.
Yes, go ahead.
Share.
There you go.
There I go.
We definitely see you.
Close all my crazy screens.
Yes, you got a lot of screens. Close the screens.
I live in this darn thing. From the beginning. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. All right. So I'll let you all stretch it out. Because talking about mortgages is riveting stuff. And I say that sarcastically because it can be very boring. So I will encourage you to use the chat. I will encourage you to ask questions. I can't see faces. So normally when we do this in person, I can walk around, I could ask questions. We make it super interactive. But that being said, even with us being on Zoom, I highly encourage you to ask questions, even if you wanted to unmute yourself. I know a couple of people said that they got little ones by them. It's all good. I've got little ones in my life too. If you need to unmute yourself and ask a question and there's a little one yelling, cool. I totally understand. It's not a problem. But again, I encourage you to make it interactive. And so I'm Joe Soto at Cross Country Mortgage. Cross Country Mortgage. I urge you to follow me on the Instagram at your favorite loan guy, and Facebook and YouTube at Joe Soto Team. I got a lot of really cool videos on YouTube. I need to update a bunch more to just give you more content in regards to just the home buying process, right? It's super stressful. I tell you a little bit about myself. I've been in the mortgage business 17 years now. I've learned a lot. Have done really well, have done really bad, have done really well, battered and bruised along the way. But I'm super grateful each day to help people buy homes. And I think that's the one thing that has stayed with me throughout this whole journey of life is realizing that buying a home is a blessing and owning real estate is a blessing. And it's also one of the most stressful things you will ever do. And I tell people, I had a client a couple of years back who was a pediatric surgeon. And so he did surgery on babies. And he told me that buying a home was the most stressful thing he had ever done. And I was like, dude, you perform surgery on babies. And he said something that has stayed with me forever. He goes, but I've done it a million times. And this is my first time doing this. And I don't know what's going to happen. And I hate it. And I was like, interesting, right? Very interesting perspective. And so that resonated with me and has stayed with me forever. So whether you're buying your first home or your fifth home, it's a scary process. But don't worry. The M&M team's got your back. Joe Soto team's got your back. Thank you for spending some time. And I learned so much from all you ladies every time we do this, because there's so many moving pieces, right, within a real estate transaction. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about loans and mortgages. And so we're going to go over a couple of things. We're going to talk about ICE. We're going to talk about loan types and programs. We're going to talk about being pre-approved, and then a little bit about finding a home, which we've talked about the home buying process already. So loans are based on three things. And when I say ICE, I mean income, credit, and equity, or down payment. So those are the things that we're going to look at, give you an overview of some of that stuff. So how does the lender, Bank of Joe, see your income? So we look at two different types of income, right? You could be W-2'd, meaning you work for a company, right? The company takes your taxes. And so what we look at is we look at a 2-year history of work. If you get any bonuses or overtime or commission, we typically need a 2-year history of that income. So I just talked to a guy this week, just started a job with Siemens last year, and he's getting commissions of about $10,000 a month. Great income, amazing income, but he doesn't have a history of earning that income. So even though he made $10,000 a month in 2020, from a lending standpoint, we give him credit for 0. You get not $1 of that until you can show us that you've made that for 2 years. So you got to be very careful about how you're paid, because if you don't have a history of earning self-employed income, you're not going to be able to use it. So bonuses, overtime, commission, same thing with truck drivers. I've had a number of clients who are in logistics and they're working a ton of overtime, right? Amazon and shipping has kept this country moving during COVID. And so a lot of those clients saw their income go way up last year because they're driving a lot more, but there's no 2-year history of making that money. So again, overtime, bonus, commissions, you want to make sure that you've had a 2-year history. Cash tips or cash earnings cannot be used as income. So I've got clients who get paid cash or do side jobs or make money that way. The only income you can use is income that you claim on your taxes. So even if, let's say I was an independent contractor and I did side jobs in construction and I got paid cash. Great. If I made $50,000 for the year in cash, would be awesome. But if I don't claim that on my taxes, it counts as zero. So, you have to make sure that any income that you make is shown on your tax returns. And then you can be self-employed. So self-employed basically means that you work for yourself, right? Real estate agent or a consultant or an independent contractor. Some people in medical field can be independent contractors. You typically need to have a 2-year history for being self-employed. If you've been self-employed for over 5 years, sometimes we can qualify you on 1 year of taxes. But when we're looking at qualifying you when you're self-employed, it's based on your net income, right? So your net income, again, just to use some round numbers, let's say your income, your 1099 or your sales are $100,000, but then you write off $80,000 because that's what your accountant tells you to do. Now you're left with $20,000. Well, Bank of Joe or Bank of any bank is going to say, hey, your only qualifying income is $20,000. That $80,000 was your cost of doing business. Basically, they say, yes, you made 100, but it cost you 80 to make that 100. So really your profit was $20,000. So when you're self-employed, you kind of got to play the game a little bit and figure out the right balance of showing income versus paying taxes. Because the more income you show, right? If you show Uncle Sam that you made $100,000, you're going to pay more taxes. Your taxable income goes up. So it's a double-edged sword. We have a lot of clients that we're talking to at this time of year who are self-employed. So whether if you're self-employed or you have a friend or a family member who is, it's a good time of the year to talk to somebody about making sure that you don't claim too many deductions on your taxes or set yourself up to buy in the future. Because once you take all those deductions and you take that income from 100 to 20, you can't reverse it, right? So definitely we're going to look at that. And again, just remember net income, not gross income. Let me look down here in the questions. Nope, I'm doing good. So now what happens if you don't have a 2-year history? So if you were out of work or you were in school or you did part-time, or if you were a homemaker, how does that work, right? You have a gap. So back there, I said you need 2 years, but what happens if you haven't had 2 years? So education can count as experience. Part-time work can count as experience. If you're a homemaker, that can count as experience, right? So let's say you worked and then you had kids and then you went back into the workforce. We can bridge that gap to show what you worked at prior to being a homemaker to be able to use your income on your new job. So we've had some situations where people have had questions like that where they weren't working and they went back and rejoined the workforce. And so that's something where it can be still used as income. I think somebody had a question here, but I think I answered it. Look at me.
That's the question, exactly what you just answered.
Melissa, I'm a psychic. I forgot to tell you. So unemployed. Good question. So look at me busting it out. Pregnant for 2 years. Got it. So exactly what Melissa is saying, right? So she was pregnant back-to-back years. Her income was different because of paid medical leave, or she was out of work. The lenders cannot fault you for having a baby, right? So your income, if you, let's just say you're making 50,000 and then 2 years you had a baby, you made 20 and 20, right? Your regular income. But now you're back to making 50,000. We can use your $50,000 now as your income. It wouldn't be an average of income, or those previous years wouldn't affect you. Now we'd have to document it, but it wouldn't be a negative for you.
Does that same thing apply to COVID? Like if you were furloughed or something, or lost your job and then got back in?
So if you lost your job because of COVID and now you're back, if it's a salary position or just straight hourly, yes, you can use that income back. If where it gets a little bit tricky is with bonuses and overtime and commission, because those declined in most cases during April to November, or April to through the whole year. So if it's a salary position, yeah, we can, as long as we can prove that the income's the same as what it was pre-COVID, salary or hourly, we are okay. That's a good question. I should add a slide like that.
And another question I have, Joe, kind of to piggyback on what I was saying, was I supposed to, because I already filled out the application with your firm, was I supposed to notify them that I was on maternity leave for 2018 and 2019, so that way they can kind of understand my W-2s?
You can, but we would see it and we would ask. So if you didn't tell us initially, that's why we ask for the W-2s and pay stubs and stuff like that, because 1 + 1 will equal 3 right away. Like we'll see it and go, okay, what happened here? So a lot of times people don't tell us that initially, but we will look and we will ask and go, hey, what was the deal here? So you can tell us in the beginning, but we usually will piece the pieces together and figure out what the drop off was. But I can make a note.
Okay, cool.
Where's my mouse? Okay, any other questions on income? So that was good questions, because we're going to go into credit. Self-employed, we talked about. W-2s. Anybody else have anything on income? I'm looking.
Am I able to speak? Hello?
Yeah, you're able to speak.
Hi, I do have a question.
Yep.
So let's just say you have the 2 years of the W-2 as your income, and you are currently not working, but you have the 2 years. So I'm able to use my 2 years of W-2, which I am salary based.
If you're currently on furlough or EDD or not working,
yes,
then you can't use it. You have to be currently employed at the time. So we would have to verify that you're currently making X dollars in order to use that income. So let's just say you had a 2-year history of making 50 grand.
Yes.
And now you're currently on furlough for the last month, right? You would have to be back to work and show that you're making the 50 grand again in order to use that income. Can't be unemployed. You can't be unemployed or on furlough. And we're seeing that a lot, especially with COVID.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. I like it. Anybody else? All right. This slide got super fancy, but I'm not used to it being that fancy. So I had to just put the whole slide out there. I'm sorry. I'm like, oh, my marketing guy made it all pretty for me. All right. So recipe for your credit score. Oh, I got a question in here. Let's see. Oh, Chris, no questions. Thank you, Chris. See, that's good though. We're interacting. Keep me on my toes. All right, so credit score. So we talked about income, right? Then we're going to talk about credit. We're going to talk about equity or down payment. So credit score, there's a couple of things that go into the credit score, right? It's the payment history. it's the debt utilization, it's the length of your credit history, it's the new credit, and it's the types of credit. You can see down in the bottom there, there's that chart with the different scores, 300 to 850. That's the range of FICO scores. And I mentioned FICO scores because there's three other credit models, or two other credit models, which are Vantage and Beacon scores. And so typically, if you raise your hand, you've probably seen Credit Karma, or you get a credit score from somewhere, right? Or like your credit card gives you the score, or whatever it is. People will know that I have a love-hate relationship with those companies, because they give you a score, but they don't give you a FICO score. They give you a Beacon or a Vantage score. And then somewhere in the little fine print, it will say like, this is not used for credit purposes. And so a lot of times you see those scores and they're not accurate with what a bank or a car dealership, or even if you were trying to apply for student loans, are going to say your credit score is, because a FICO score gives you a longer look back. And I know right away if somebody tells me, oh, my credit score is like 950, I'm like, nope, can't be, because the max is 850, right? And so some of these models will just, give you this crazy range as far as credit scores go. So 850 is the max. FICO score is what you want to look for. You don't want to look at the Beacon or the Vantage score, because those are not accurate credit scores. Let me see here. As far as you can see here with the slide, what is the greatest weight on your credit is your payment history, right? That's going to be the one that affects you the most. The second thing is debt utilization. So keeping your balances below 50% of your credit limit is going to help you with your credit score. The other thing is your length of credit history, right? So those are the three big ones. How long have you had credit? If you're like me, I got credit really young and I was really stupid. And so I got a credit card and I was like, this is cool. They gave me a free t-shirt and a credit card. It was like the best. And then I didn't realize you had to pay that money back. That was not a good recipe for success. I was like, ooh, they sent me a bill at like 26% interest. No wonder why they gave me a t-shirt. Looking back on it now, not a good idea. But that Discover card that I got in 1997 is my longest running credit card that I've had for forever. So still got the Discover card, still got the t-shirt, and I will not close it because of the years, right? It shows that I've had credit history for all of those years. So that's why as you get older, your credit score can be higher, and typically is higher because you have that length of credit history. So if that length of history is really good, that's automatically, going to boost up the score. And so I always like to talk about ways to repair the credit, because I always tell people that it's really, really easy to get bad credit, right? Collection agencies, you miss a payment, you forget, you didn't realize that there was a balance due on a medical. Like there's always something that pops up. I've seen hundreds of thousands of credit reports. So getting them, having it go down is easier than bringing it up. And I know from personal experience because, when I moved here from New York, like I said, my credit was in the tank and I had to fight the fight to get it up. So give you some tips on repairing the credit and bringing your credit score up. And so the number one thing that you can do is obviously pay down those balances, right? 50% of the new collections of the balances, you want to keep it below 50% of the balance. Now, if you can get that to 30% of the balances, cool. That's super awesome. The other thing I will tell you about your balances is some people will have a card, let's say a $500 limit. They'll use it every month and then pay it off. I typically will recommend that even if you're going to pay it off every month, keep your balance at all times below 50% of the credit limit. Because what happens is if I have a Visa card and I max it out, I use $500, they're going to report to the bureaus that I used 500 of 500. So it's going to look like I'm maxing out my credit. So you definitely want to keep those balances below 50% at all times. and 30% if you really want to, see the score boost up. I think I got a question. Yes, my boy DeAndre. DeAndre, I was talking about you earlier. I don't feel as alone now that there's another guy on the call. Can you talk about the different credit scores used for different house loans? Yes, Mary, we will talk about that when we talk about the different loan programs.
Thanks, Joe.
Can you raise your score just before closing? Does it make a difference in the interest rate or the APR? DeAndre, we will talk about that with regards to credit scores and different loan types. Conventional loans are more based on risk than FHA loans. So on a conventional loan, it may, on an FHA loan, it may not, because it doesn't matter as greatly on the FHA versus the conventional. So, but a very, very good question. New collection accounts. So if you've ever had a collection account on your credit, it can stay on your credit for 7 years. And some people will tell you don't pay a collection account, right? And you typically see them from cell phone companies, medical collections are the huge ones. DirecTV, cable companies are really big on the collection accounts. And so if you have a collection account on your credit, the best thing that you can do is get what's called a letter of deletion. So you pay them the full amount that you owe them, and you request that they delete the item from the credit. Medical companies are usually pretty good about doing that for you, where you have, like DirecTV or something like that. They may not be as wanting to do that, but a letter of deletion would be really, really good. So the people who tell you, do not pay a collection, if it's been on your credit for a long time and it's not actively reporting, you can roll the dice. But if you have collection accounts and they're actively reporting, they reported in December, January, February, like you can see it's actively hitting your credit, then I always recommend paying it off, right? Like you don't want that negative to keep hitting you. If you settle the collection account, so I owe DirecTV $1,000 and I have a collection on my credit. If I settle that with DirecTV for $500, it will still show on my credit as a settled for less collection. So it still stays on there. The best thing you can do is this letter of deletion, because that will take it off of the credit like it was never there. The next thing you can do to help your credit is build good credit. So paying your stuff on time, opening up maybe 1 or 2 new accounts so that you can build more good credit. The other thing that you can do is you can become an authorized user. So let's just say I go to my aunt, I don't know, Linda, and I'm like, hey, or my mom, Linda, you're my mom today. Sorry, Linda. Okay. So I go to my mom, Linda, and I'm like, Mom, I'm trying to build my credit. Can you add me on as an authorized user on one of your accounts, right? Because we talked about one of the things being length of credit history. So Mom's got an account that she's had open for 20 years, high credit limit, low balance. She adds me on to that account. Now that reports on my credit as well. So that will help you build your credit score, give you that length of credit history. Now you don't want to get added. If I go to Mom Linda and I'm like, Mom, add me to your card, and then she adds me to her American Express that's maxed out with a bunch of late payments, well, then that's not going to be so good. We don't want that to happen. So again, but being added would be a way, and I've had it happen with a lot of clients because they don't have a lot of credit or long credit history that can help you build your score. Same thing if you have kids, right? If you have kids, it's a good thing. My nephew was helping me in the summer and had no credit. He's like, I don't think I have credit, Uncle Joe. And I hear you talking about this all day long. And so I called my sister-in-law and I was like, hey, you need to put him on your card. And she's like, I'm not doing that. Like, he needs to be responsible. He needs to figure himself out. And she did. After I convinced her and we talked about it like this, she did. And he got his credit run for student loans, and he was like 787 credit score with his one account. So it worked. And she's like, damn, you were right. I was like, I've done this once or twice. I know a little bit. I've seen a lot of credit reports. So that's a good idea. Melissa, good question. How long do you have to be added? So Melissa's question is, how long do you have to be added to their account, and and if they take me off, will it lower my score? So the time frame, so it's almost immediate, right? Like, I put you on my account today and it reports in March or April, like, you should see an impact on the score. But you're right. If they do take you off, let's say you make your mom mad in a year or 2 or 3, and she's like, I'm cutting you off. Then it could bring your score down. Same thing would happen is if mom, like, let's say you don't get a copy of that, you don't get on that card, but if mom raises that credit score up. So using my nephew as an example, if his mom or dad maxed out that one credit card he has, his score is going to go down. If his mom or dad miss payments on that credit card, his score is going to go down. So you do have to build your own at the same time, but it's a good way to piggyback on somebody else.
I have a question about the letter of deletion.
Yeah,
if you request it, is it required that they do it or send you one, or is it kind of at their discretion?
I'm 95% sure it's required on medical. Like, I've had a lot of success with medical, but the regular companies like T-Mobile and DirecTV and AT&T, I don't think they're required to do it. It would be something in good faith, you know, but I've had a number of people get them over the years. I know American Express is really good about that. Visa does some, so it just depends on the company, you know, but it can't hurt to try, right? Squeaky wheel gets the grease. So you call and you love on them and you try your best to do that. But very good question.
Joe, in regards to that authorized user, so you're basically saying if we were to add them on there, it's best to keep them on there instead of trying to delete them at after a certain period of time, correct?
Yes. I would keep them on there until they are really established on their own. So they have their own long credit history, right? Like, if my sister-in-law took my nephew off today, he would have one credit card that he got in December.
Okay.
Right. So like the credit profile changes dramatically versus that credit card that she's had since, 94.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Good question. Any other questions on credit? Because I find credit to be the most fascinating thing ever, the way it works. All right. So down payment. So where does down payment come from? Traditional sources for down payment, right? Checking and savings. A lot of people are pulling money out of 401k right now. I don't know if it's been extended. I think it was extended to where you could pull money from a 401k without penalty. I know that there were some changes during COVID that was allowed. I was just talking to a client yesterday about it, and they were going to look into it. So you can pull money from your 401k. You have to check with your employer to see if you're allowed to do that. Gift funds are okay. So you can get a gift from a family member, or a spouse. Cannot be a friend, right? Like, I can't say my friend Glennis is going to give me money for a down payment. Got to be a family member. We could turn her from friend Glennis to cousin Glennis. Cool. In the stroke of a pen, she becomes a cousin. Or if you've known her a long time, it could be like Aunt Glennis or whatever. I mean, I got 100 family members who are uncles that are not related to me. So whatever, that works too. We'll say uncle. But it always has to be properly documented, right? Can't be cash. I think that's the big thing. If you take anything away from this day, It's cash is not our friend. We always have to get it into the bank and make sure it's seasoned and make sure we can trace it. I have a lot of people who have mattress money, and you just have to make sure it's gets in the bank, right? That's the big thing. You can use down payment assistance. So there's programs to help you with down payment assistance, which we'll go over how some of those work as well to help you with down payment plus closing costs. And the two biggest programs that we have right now are the GSFA as well as the CalHFA. GFSA has kind of been limited since COVID has happened. CalHFA went away for a little bit when COVID first hit, like in March. I actually had a client that was in closing, ready to close with the CalHFA, and they pulled the program momentarily during that time. But that program is back and full swing right now. So closing costs, touch a little bit about what closing costs are, and then we're going to go into different loan programs. Any questions on down payment as far as pulling them from places before I jump into closing costs?
I have a question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when we're talking about gifts, wasn't there something like if you have, say, your dad gives you, your down payment, if they wired it to the escrow company themselves, then you don't need it to be seasoned? Is that
On
right?
a conventional loan, yes. On a conventional loan, it can go directly to escrow, and we will not verify where it came from. On an FHA loan, so let's say I'm buying a house, Taylor's giving me a gift, right? Like to use an example, Taylor's going to give me $10,000 for closing for down payment and closing costs. On a conventional loan, Taylor would send that money directly to closing, and we're not going to ask anything about that money. If Taylor sends that money to my bank account, then we're going to want to see where Taylor got that money from. On an FHA loan, doesn't matter where Taylor sends that money, whether she sends it to escrow or she sends it to me, we're going to want to see Taylor's bank statement with the $10,000 in that bank, right? So it can't be like she goes and deposits money today and then gives me a gift tomorrow. So on an FHA loan, yes, we do have to see the money and the donor's gift, the donor's bank statement. Conventional loan, we do not need to see the donor's info. As long as it goes straight to escrow. Once the donor, and I have that happen sometimes too, where people don't listen, and the donor just sends the money to the borrower, and now we need more paper trail. But yes, if it goes directly to you, are okay.
Joe, one quick question, and you may have already answered it, but how long did you say the money has to be in the account?
Money, good question. Money has to be in the account for 2 months typically. So when I say 2 months, I mean 2 bank statement months, right?
Okay.
So you put your money in today. If your statement ends end of February, then we would need to see the March and April bank statement, right? To show that you've had the money there. So could be 2 months. Sometimes, depending on when your statements end, it might even be 3, right? Depending on the timeline. So it's always good. And it's always good to ask before you make any large deposits, right? Because you may be able to put, $2,000 in the bank, and maybe we don't have to track $2,000 versus if you went and put 10,000 at once, we're going to need to track the $10,000. So sometimes you can kind of play the game a little bit that way. That's why I always say we're in this circle of trust, right? It's like if you ever seen the movie Meet the Parents, right? That circle of trust, that's us, right? It's you, it's your agent, it's your lender. You can tell us anything because we're all fighting the same fight, and we're all in that circle of trust. And so, hey, I got cash. What do I do with it? I've got to work with my tax returns. What do I do with it? Should I pull money out of my 401k? How do I do it? So we can guide you through all of that. But long answer, Claudia, to 2 months, maybe 3, depends on the statements.
Thank you.
Good question. All right, so closing costs. I don't think we touched on closing costs a little bit, but I'll just give you the quick rule of thumb on closing costs. And we break them down into two categories. There's closing costs, and then there's prepaids. And so closing costs are all your third-party fees, lender fees, appraisal, title, escrow, recording, everything you're going to pay to buy a house. The rule of thumb is 1.5% to 2% of your sales price is going to be your closing costs. And then you have your other portion of the puzzle is going to be prepaids. So prepaids are going to be what's going to be set aside for property taxes and homeowners insurance. And you're going to prepay those and set up what's called an escrow or an impound account. So you're closing today, let's say, and the property is $500,000, you would need about 1.5% to 2% of the purchase price to cover closing costs and prepaid. So right here where it says closing costs, that should say both. So you would need anywhere from, let's say, I don't know, let's say $8,000 to $10,000 for closing costs and prepaids. And that would be part of the whole pre-approval process, which we would go through all of that stuff. What goes into a mortgage payment? So I get asked this a lot because people will use Google calculators or Zillow calculators or calculator.com or whatever it is. And they'll say, cool, I found, a property and it looks like the payment's only, $1,500. But that might only be the principal and interest payment. It may not include property taxes, homeowners insurance, and if you are not putting 20% down, private mortgage insurance or PMI. So all of these four things are included in the mortgage payment. What I didn't put in here is what Glennis had mentioned is HOA dues, because when you buy a house that has an association, you pay the HOA dues separately. But if you're looking at what's in my mortgage payment itself, it's all of these: principal and interest, taxes, insurance. The general rule of thumb is every $100,000 that you're looking to borrow is going to equate to $700 per month. Oops. It went away. There it is. Equates to about $700 per month. That number might be a little bit lower right now because interest rates are a little bit low, but that's a good ballpark, right? So if you're looking at 200,000, it would be $1,400 a month. 300,000 would be about $2,100 a month. 400,000 would be about $2,800 a month. So that's a kind of rule of thumb ballpark number, but a good way to kind of just wrap your head around that. And like I said, might be a little bit high right now, but I always like to shoot high and then have it be lower. And that's with minimum down payments. So we'll talk a little bit about different loans and different requirements. Go in here. So FHA loans, typically for first-time home buyers, require a minimum down payment of 3.5%. Lower FICO requirements, you could have down to a 580 credit score, and flexible guidelines. So FHA loans are based on risk. And so are not based on risk. They're regulated by the federal government. So FHA loan stands for Federal Housing Administration. The other type of government loan is the VA loan. VA loan is for anybody who's been in the military or a widowed spouse. And if you are in the military or you know somebody who's been in the military, it's literally the biggest no-brainer in the history of mankind. I had one of my loan officers just help a guy military buy a income property with a VA loan, which I thought was pretty interesting. 0 down, 4-unit property. And he's not only did he buy a place, but now he's going to have income generating on it. So he's going to live in 1 unit, get income on the other 3 units. So that's a good option too. But literally, it's the biggest no-brainer in the history of mankind that if you or someone you know has been in the service and they're renting, they should stop because they can really buy a house and qualify for something. Conventional loans are based on risk. So FHA loans, government loans, not based on risk. Conventional loans are based on risk and have a little bit more restrictive guidelines. So you can see you have to have a little bit of a higher FICO score with a conventional loan. Conventional loans, you can do 3% down, but it's limited to certain areas and certain income limits. And so that is even a little bit more restrictive. For the most part on conventional loans, they do require 5% down. Somebody got a question in here. Did the rents in the other units count as income? Yes, they did, Teresa. So that person who bought 4-unit property, one property was his that he lived in, and the other 3 he could use some rental income to qualify. So that definitely helped him out. It's easier to do with VA than you can do with FHA loans. FHA loans make it almost impossible to buy 3 to 4 units with a low down payment because they have some crazy calculation that they make us do. But VA loans do not have that same calculation.
Do the other units have to be tenant occupied already, or can they be vacant and then you find renters?
They can be vacant. I think you may have to line up renters like prior to closing.
Okay.
So we'd want to see, we want to know what the rents are going to be.
Right.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Can you go in on I guess purchasing a home with someone who was in the military, like a family member, or that won't work?
You can't do it with 0 down. You can do it, but you'd have to put 12.5% down.
12.5. Okay.
12.5. Very strict guidelines that VA has with that. Not 12 and not 11, 12.5. Like they're very strict on that number. Good question though. I like it. Same thing if you're not married with the VA loan. So if it's if boyfriend and girlfriend, they would have to put 12.5% down. But if they go and get married, and I've had it happen on a number of occasions where they've gone to the courthouse and gotten married, they can get married and then they can buy with 0 down together. And yes, I said a number of occasions. I've had more than one couple go and get married just to be able to buy a house. Oh, and then there's jumbo loans. Jumbo loans are basically anything over $822,000. Jumbo loans typically are in the $1 million range, and they just have more restrictive guidelines. So when you're buying more house, the guidelines get more restrictive, and we ask a lot more questions. So the guidelines are just more strict, but still doable, just more paperwork. And kind of like I had talked about, right? Conventional loans based on risk. Here's a couple of pros and cons on the conventional loans. I think the one thing that I didn't talk about was PMI, where you can get that removed on a conventional loan versus an FHA loan. You have to refinance it to get it removed. Sometimes the PMI could be lower on a conventional than on an FHA, but that depends on credit score, property type, all of that stuff, because they're risk-based loans, right? Risk-based loans. And typically, like I said, the conventional loan is just more restrictive as far as the guidelines. So if you're qualifying for a house, you're going to qualify in most cases more for an FHA than you would on a conventional, and higher PMI. Oh, I got a question in here.
I have a question, Joe.
I'm going. Melissa, how often can a veteran buy a house? You can buy as many houses as you want. You can use the VA loan as many times as you like. It's not a use it and lose it, which is a really good question, because a lot of people seem to think that they will use it and lose it. You can use it as many times as you want. What you can't do, and what is difficult to do, is to have 2 VA loans at the same time. So it's very difficult to own a home with the VA loan and buy another home with the VA loan. what some people will do is either they'll sell that home and buy something else with the VA, or they'll refinance that home, put it into a conventional loan, and then use the VA loan again. So you can do it, but most people will buy and sell.
Okay, and then so could the title on the home, are they able to like sign that over to someone else if they purchase it using a VA loan? Could they sign their title over to someone else? I don't know if that makes sense.
I don't think that they can sign title, because at least not right away, because when you buy the home with the VA loan, you agree to be the primary residence. So you agree that it's going to be your primary residence. So you might be able to do it like after a year, but right away you probably can't. That would probably be a red flag for the VA.
Okay, yeah, I did hear that, Joe, that and I guess it is. I mean, I don't want to like admit that we're doing like illegal stuff, but like if my dad's a vet and he currently lives in a home that obviously he owns, but if he's buying another home, like they just kind of told him that he would have to quote unquote live in that house for a year before he can like buy something else.
OMG, that's my scenario. That's why I'm asking. I'm trying to figure this stuff out.
Correct. So he owns a home right now. He could buy something else, but when you buy a home with the VA loan, you agree that it's going to be your primary residence, right? So it would be something that he has to say that he's going to live in, right? So let's say if your dad lives here, let's say he lives in Long Beach and you're buying a new place in Long Beach, cool, that should work. Now, will the VA come and knock on the door and be like, "Are you Mr. Jones?" Probably not, right? Probably not, unless you go into default. So if you don't pay the mortgage, all of a sudden they're going to come knocking going, "Hey, what's going on?" And that's where, you could get into trouble. But I don't think you'd have a situation where they would come knock on your door. I think to take off title would be difficult, and yeah, I mean, you do technically have to be there. Like it has to be the primary residence. That being said, right, I've had guys buy homes active duty, and they buy a home in January, and then they get orders to go to Texas or another foreign country in July, and they got to go, right? So it happens where people do, their life changes, but again, it needs to be primary residence is what they're going to want to see. You shouldn't buy it and rent it out right away or never move in it, but circle of trust, I don't know if they come and knock on your door. Hope that answered. Any other questions on that? Good questions. Okay. Cool. FHA loans. Again, pros and cons, typically better more for first-time home buyers, lower down payment, more flexible guidelines. They'll allow you to qualify. They'll make it a little bit easier for you to qualify because it's regulated by the Federal Housing Administration. You do have PMI for the life of the loan. PMI in some cases can be higher. The government does charge an upfront mortgage insurance premium, which is added to the loan. You don't pay that out of pocket, but it is part of the loan. And then if you're looking at condos or townhomes, they must be FHA approved. So I know Glennis talked about that earlier, where if the property is not FHA approved, then it has to be a conventional loan. And there's much fewer properties FHA approved than conventional. So if you're looking at doing a condo, you're probably better off doing a conventional loan over an FHA loan. Then we're going to talk a little bit about DPA programs, down payment assistance programs. I'm looking here for questions. Cool. So there are programs out there to help you with your down payment. Ultimately, the biggest challenge here especially is payment, monthly payment, and cash to close, right? Those are the two biggest issues. And so down payment assistance programs are set up to obviously make it a little bit easier to get into a property. So less upfront cash investment. You can use it. You can use it for the down payment, and closing costs. Again, it allows you to get in the game faster. It's always better to buy than to rent. You can do down payment assistance for conventional and FHA options. I'll tell you, I've had a couple of clients who have bought with these programs in the past, and dude, property values have gone up so much that they've just increased their equity and put themselves in a good spot. Mary King, do you know what cities have down payment assistance programs? So I know Cal HFA works for the whole state. I know there are some cities that I've run into that have programs for down payment assistance. I don't know every city. I feel like I learn more as we come through the process, but I've run into them for Santa Ana, for Anaheim, for Long Beach, and most of them are like super low income programs to where, or they're very specific programs, like you have to buy in this particular neighborhood in order to qualify for those city specific programs. But I don't know every city. If you're looking at a specific city, you can search, and then I can see if it's something that we would work with regards to city specific stuff. The cons on those programs is typically the interest rates are higher, as well as the closing costs. They tend to be more restrictive. This actually says 640 minimum credit score. It's actually 660 minimum credit score. So that went up last year. There's limits on income as far as how much you can make. There's limits on the property. And typically you're going to qualify for a little bit less in purchase price. So I say it's about 50,000, right? If you're looking at a regular FHA loan and you qualify for 450, regular FHA. If you're looking at a down payment assistance program, you're probably going to be at 400. So that's going to be the difference there. Typically, they have a little bit of a longer timeline. So probably looking 45 to 60 days on one of those programs. And as Glennis had mentioned, the market's just tough, right? There's many offers on properties. So right now it's a little bit more challenging to get those offers accepted, just because of the timeline needed, right? Like people want to sell their home quick. So that's another con. And then typically you still will need help with closing costs, which I'll give you a scenario to kind of show you the numbers on how that works. So you can see, what kind of cash you would need for closing.
I've also heard that, I don't know if a lot of them have it, but some down payment assistance programs require you to have an equity share once you sell the house. Is that common?
There are programs like that. Usually they are CRA programs, which is Community Reinvestment Act programs. And so there are some programs like that, again, where you have to buy in a specific neighborhood, right? Because they want you to reinvest in the community. And sometimes they'll have limitations on when you can sell. So you have to live in the house for 10 years is a number I've seen a lot of. And if you sell, there's some programs out there where if you sell, a certain percentage of the equity would have to go back to the program. So you got to look into how it all works. Sometimes, as I say, as they taught me growing up back in Brooklyn, you don't get nothing for nothing, right? So there's always a catch if it sounds too good to be true. So it's just a matter of looking at the pros and cons, kind of like I laid out here, and seeing, what would be best for your situation. But good question.
Joe, are you going to show us how, for instance, the DPA program will work with your FHA loan? How does that integrate? How did that?
Ben, you're jumping ahead. I got you.
Sorry, Joe.
It's coming. Yes, I will. I did a little breakdown just so you can kind of see how the numbers work.
Okay.
Because I think it's a little bit easier that way. But very good question. So looking at this CalHFA program, again, it's the #1 down payment assistance program in California. First-time home buyer is somebody who has not owned a home in 3 years. So if you owned a home 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you could be a first-time home buyer again based on that program. Has to be your primary residence. Everybody who's on the loan has to live there. So you cannot have a cosigner on this program. 660 credit score. There's income limits. There's 3 different pieces to the puzzle as far as this program. So there's your regular mortgage, there's a My Home, which helps with your down payment, and there's a ZIP, which helps with down payment and some closing costs. And then school teachers assistance, if you work in education, there's a little bit more of assistance that does go to you with the ZIP program. So it's an extra 0.5% that you would get there on that particular program. So that is how they all work. And I'll show you kind of how it works, numbers wise. But you can finance a bunch. They'll let you get up to 822 now. Sorry, that slide's not updated. So you can finance a bunch with this program. Just gets more restrictive as you get higher in price. As I mentioned, they do have income limits. So the income limits are pretty high, right? Like a married couple, everybody who's going to live in the house and be on the loan or live in the house, you can't make more than $203,000 in Orange County, $153,000 in LA, Riverside and San Diego, 149 and 183. So again, good income limits, right? Like it's not really a restrictive program versus City of Santa Ana has a program and you can't make more than $35,000 for the year. Well, that's great. But if I make less than $35,000, can I afford a house in Santa Ana? The answer to that is no. So it's really strange. Different cities, different programs have different income limits. And sometimes they make them so low that even if you were in that income range, you couldn't buy a house within that city, whether it's Long Beach or Inglewood or LA or Riverside, San Bernardino. It's odd how some of these programs are set up, but sometimes it's a square peg in a round hole. So looking at this CalHFA program, so the first loan is either an FHA or conventional loan, and the interest rate is set by the program, not the lender. So it doesn't matter if it's Joe Soto or Joe Schmo. The CalHFA sets the rates. Then you'd also have a second mortgage, which is deferred until it's refinanced, right? You don't pay this second mortgage or this third mortgage. And this little guideline has changed a little bit as far as the amount that they'll give you on this second, which I ran that in my scenario that'll be coming up. And then you could do a third mortgage or third loan, which is a 0 interest program. And I think the interest rate on this one is 3%, if I'm not mistaken. The 0 interest program is a 3% third mortgage, which 0 interest, and you don't pay these until you sell the home. So if you had to refinance the home, you have to pay them off. If you are selling the property, you do have to pay it back. So it's not like a grant or goes away. There are grant programs out there, but again, more restrictive as far as how much you can qualify for. That's why this is the #1 program in the state. But it would typically be your regular first mortgage, a second mortgage, and then a third mortgage, which, if it goes. So here's an example of how it works. So if you're doing a $450,000 purchase price, which is about $3,100 per month in payment, you'd have 3.5% down. You would have closing costs, which shows about $16,875. So I know, using the scenario I gave you before, I told you closing costs are about 1.5% to 2% of your sales price, right? This is much higher on this program, so higher closing costs on this down payment assistance program. So you have total costs of $32,625, right? That's this and this. this My Home program, typically it'll give you up to 3.5% of the sales price, but this year they capped it out at $11,000. So it's either or. So if you're looking at a $300,000 place, you would get 3.5%. But as you go up higher, you're going to be limited to $11,000. Then you're going to get the ZIP program, which can leave remaining about $8,000. So instead of coming in with 32, you're going to come in with about 8 is what you would need on this program. Now, keep in mind that this 32 has a little bit higher closing costs. But again, overall, the amount of money that you would be coming out of pocket with would be much lower than if you were coming in with your own down payment and closing costs. So that's the basics on how the program works. And every scenario is different. Like I tell people all the time, right? Like there's no one scenario for any one person. Everybody's scenario is going to be different. So that's what we do is we run those scenarios for you and try to see. And like I said, that same rule of thumb, right? Every 100K that you're looking to borrow is going to be, $700 a month in payment. So if you said, hey, we could afford about $3,500 a month, I can do the math and say that's going to be somewhere about $550,000, $600,000, right? Somewhere in that range as far as on a purchase price. So that's a good little rule of thumb, but that's kind of how the program works. So I think that was Mary who had the question, right? Just to kind of show you, right, the purchase price, the down payment, the closing costs, then the total, and then what you would have. You'd have a first mortgage, right, which would cover the purchase price, and then you'd have the second and the third, and then that's what's left over.
So a quick question. If is there a time limit a person has to live if they use this? They have to live in that house for a certain period of time before they move to another house, correct? And using is that true?
I don't think so. I can double check that, but I have not, right? As long as, so the normal rule is air quotes, is as long as it's as long as your intention is to make that your primary residence at the time of closing, then that's fine. If life changes and you have to move out, then you have to move out or buy something else. But I don't think there's any rules on this program, and I will double check it and I'll send it we can send it out to everybody that you have to live in it for a certain amount of time.
I know, I thought I heard that too. I thought one of the second or the third, if they stayed in there for 3 years, I thought it would go away. One of them.
Used to back like 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
They don't anymore.
Okay.
Joe, this is Mary again. Is CalHalpa, like you said, it's the #1 program out there basically for California. Is there other programs that are just as good as CalHalpa, or they
don't give as much assistance. So the GSFA, which I mentioned earlier, is another one, but they only give like 3% total. Right. So where this would give you 3% plus another 11,000.
Do you recommend the CalHalpa for individuals for first-time home ownership, or?
Yeah, it is the best program.
Okay.
For sure, as far as to give you the most assistance, and they have the most flexible guidelines.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.
And CalHalpa can be FHA and conventional?
Correct.
Okay.
FHA or conventional.
Are they taking, so I heard you say something about like if you sell the house, they get a percentage of the equity. Do you know what that percentage?
Not on this program. So CalHalpa does not do that. But there are other programs. Usually the programs that do that, that's a good question, Melissa, is the city-specific programs. The ones that are part of the Community Reinvestment Act, usually those have it, because let's say they want to redevelop Inglewood and they want you to live in here and stay here. If you move out in a certain amount of time, they would require that. So this program does not have that. Neither does the GSFA. They don't have that either. but the city specific ones usually do because they want you to stay in the city. Good question. Okay, so the easy way to determine your buying power is to look at your debt to income ratio, right? That's what the banks look like. And so we look at your existing debts plus your new mortgage payment divided by your gross income. So if the new mortgage was going to be $3,000 and you had $200 in student loans per month and a $500 car payment, you'd have $3,700 of debt. If your income would have to be about $8,000 per month to be at a 46 debt to income ratio, right? And so, as I mentioned, on a conventional loan or a down payment assistance loan, that DTI needs to be about 45. On an FHA loan, it can go to about 55. So that would mean on an FHA loan with this same $8,000 of income, you could probably qualify for a little bit more mortgage, a little bit more house. On a conventional loan, it might be actually a little bit less. So that's what we're going to look at, is we're going to look at the total gross income. If you're W-2'd, if you're 1099 or you're self-employed, it's that net, right? So don't get that confused. And then it's a percentage of that income is what we're going to use to try to calculate your max amount that you would qualify for. And that's why we look at your credit report. That's why we look at all your debts. That's why we look at the 2-year history of the income, because we want to make sure that that number is accurate as far as debt to income. Those are the three letters that every lender looks at: debt to income. And then just to tell you what a pre-approval is. So one of the things that's really important is making sure that you're really approved, that you know what you're getting into. I know that I went through this with DeAndre and Katoya, right? And we did the whole thing. We ran the credit. We did the application. We ran the credit. We looked at the income and assets, right? Like, it's a whole process of getting all this paperwork together. And then we run it through an automated underwriting system to make sure that we can approve you for that loan. And it lets us know what your purchase price is, what your max is, so that way you don't have any surprises. We go through and we do our little mortgage coach program, and we go through the different options to show you what you're looking at, right? What's the payment? What's the cash to close? How much do you qualify for? And it's really, really important that you do all of those steps. I just got a call from a lady last night, was an escrow on a property on a client, was pre-approved through Citibank, and it's like 4 days before closing. They're supposed to close on Thursday, and Citibank denied the loan. And she was shocked, but the client didn't do a real pre-approval in the beginning. Like, they just talked to the guy, he gave him a letter, and then they tried to figure it out in escrow. Like, that is not the way you want to buy a house. It is the highest stress way of buying the house.
Joe, can I hijack 10 seconds of your session?
Go ahead.
This is something that I should have said earlier when I had my portion talking to the group. Another reason that you need to have a pre-approval letter as soon as possible is because many of these homes are not even letting you go look at the home without a pre-approval
Good
letter.
point.
They want to make sure, because of COVID, people don't want people just arbitrarily walking in their house being looky-loos, just looking around when knowing good and well they can't afford to purchase the home. So again, I just reiterate, and Joe has just said the same thing too, get the pre-approval letter as quickly and as soon as possible. It's your entry into looking into properties if you want to see them. Thanks, Joe.
Yes, super
You
important.
better go, Claudia, girl.
It is. It's super, super important, because you're right. They won't let you in. They give you the Heisman, the stiff arm, when you try to go in. And so the pre-approval letter, like we said, is really important because it validates your ability to qualify. It shows you're motivated. It allows us to do quicker closings. Like, I know we've done a number of 21-day close, short contingency periods, right? If there's 4, 5, 6, 10 offers on a place, the borrower is going to want to go, the seller is going to want to go with the strongest people. So we want to be the strongest ones that are out there. because the seller just wants to sell their home, and we want to make it as easy for them as we possibly can. So congratulations. I appreciate everybody taking some time, and let's see if everybody hung in there with me. How many people we still got here? 18. Yes. We do have everybody still on here. So I do appreciate everybody hanging in there. I'll stop my little share. We do I always like to do a little giveaway. Normally, if you were here, I would say I'd give you an application, have you fill out your paperwork and send it over. But for joining the class, we'll do a $500 lender credit. So I know DeAndre and Katoya are on here, and some other people are on here that I've seen and spoken to. So if you just remind me that you did join the class, I will make sure that we give you a lender credit when you join, which will help cover for the appraisal or something like that, because every little bit counts. And so, you know, anything we can do to help you out, we're grateful for you reaching out to us and trusting us to help you. And if you want to move forward with getting pre-approved, you could reach out to me. Phone number, oh, look at Teresa threw it in there. 866 Joe Soto, easiest number to remember. Taylor, you mentioned the sign. I got this fancy sign made. I've never used it because the family that made it for me didn't buy a house. They went into probate. The home that they were buying went into probate, and I've kept this sign hung up there. Sorry, I'm on my virtual background. I've kept that sign there, and I said, I'm not going to use it until you buy a house. So the Torres family, wherever you at, one day we will use it with you. So, but maybe I'll use it with one of you guys if the Torres family comes through clutch. Any other questions, let me know. I'm here to answer anything, but yeah, we're here to help you out.
Joe Soto, you are the bomb. Super, super awesome. I want to bring up Dee. She is our final speaker member for the M&M team. She's going to introduce herself and she's going to close us out. Go, Dee.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Delisa. They call me Dee. And I joined the team in 2019. Great team to be with. We get a lot of great support. Teresa's awesome broker. We're like a family. I work part-time with as a realtor, and so I'm sort of lagging in some ways, but I'm always encouraged and welcomed, and I'm just glad to be a part of the team. And I would just like to say we thank everyone for being a part of this webinar, seminar. We hope you learned something, and we, I'm sorry, connect with the person that you know invited you to be a part of this. And if you have any questions, be sure to ask them. We hope you learned something. We sure you did. I sure did. Each time we have a seminar, even though you know we went through all kind of trainings as realtors, but we still are learning, and we sure you learned something. But feel free to ask questions, and you know, stay tuned. There's so much more to learn and to experience in this whole process. Thank you.
Dee, you rock the house, girl. You rock. I am so proud of all of you guys. Please, just like Dee said, reach out to the person that invited you. Thank you for taking time and joining us on your Saturday. This does conclude our seminar. Make sure you reach out to Joe Soto. What's the number again, Joe Soto? Unmute yourself.
It's 866 Joe Soto. I mean, so easy. 866 JOESOTO.